Welcome to Silence Screams Loud Strength. In today's episode, I am talking about the day I finally responded to mistreatment, maintaining spiritual integrity while standing firm. I am your host, Samantha. So the day I finally responded to mistreatment, well, that day when silence no longer represented who I was, the day when silence no longer equals peace, when grace no longer means tolerance to abuse, and when love no longer excuses disrespect. In this episode, I am maintaining spiritual integrity while standing firm in my truth. Because protecting your peace is not rebellion, it's divine responsibility. There comes a moment in everyone's healing journey when quiet endurance turns into sacred awareness. It's a breaking point. It's when the same patterns no longer serve you, that they once hurt you so much. The sound was so loud in your spiritual being, you had to stand firm for yourself. Because healing starts with yourself and reclaiming a little bit of power back. Family. Maybe it's the tone in someone's voice that used to make you shake. Maybe it's being ignored, manipulated, gaslit again and again and again. Maybe it's that familiar feeling of being unjustly, feeling unworthy because you're being treated inhumane. And sometimes inside you there's a whisper, not this time. The whisper is not bitterness, it's awakening, divine intervention in God's timing. It's the sound of your soul saying to you, I will no longer be betrayed or betray myself to be loved. You see, the day I finally responded to mistreatment, it wasn't about losing control. It's the day I regained it all. So there's a difference between responding and reacting. Now, here's the hard truth. Not every response is a healing response. Sometimes what we call understanding or standing up for ourselves is just that. It's still just reactive, wrapped in pain. Is to respond with spiritual integrity. That means you don't abandon your values while defending them. You choose to align. You choose to be aligned in your anger or over that anger that has been going on inside of you. But it's speaking the truth without being venomous. Setting your boundaries without revenge. You walk away without needing to be right. You choose to be aligned over anger. Because just because you're a victim, it doesn't mean that you have no values or integrity over yourself. It's because you have been there and you've given it your all. But no matter what you do, it doesn't change the person who's abusing you. So because the moment you mirror the energy that wounded you, you take your power back. Standing up firm doesn't mean raising your voice. It means arising your standards and raising your standards, arising to your standards. You arise. The spiritual test. Every mistreatment carries a spiritual test. While you shrink to be accepted, when you harden to protect yourself, or when you stand in your truth and balance between compassion and clarity. Maintaining spiritual integrity means when you know when to speak and when to surrender. Not to surrender to the mistreatment, no, but to surrender to God's process or justice and restoration. It's saying, God, I will no longer carry this pain as my identity. I will no longer let behavior dictate my energy. I choose peace even when I have to stand alone, even when I don't have anything. I choose peace. And that kind of peace is power. Boundaries are not bitterness. There is a lie many of us tell, or we are taught, that setting boundaries makes us unkind, distant, and unforgiving. But boundaries are spiritual hygiene. They keep our spirit clean, our purpose clear, our energy protected. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Love doesn't mean access. Grace doesn't mean exposure. You can forgive and still say no. You no longer have a seat at my table. That's not bitterness, that is wisdom. When you reach that point, you stop interrupting people's karma. You let life and God handle what peace no longer has the capacity to hold. So how do you respond spiritually? Let's walk through a few simple but powerful steps you can use when you are faced with mistreatment and you want to respond without losing yourself. Pause before reacting. Ask yourself, what part of me is being triggered? This gives higher self time to lead instead of feeling wounded. Acknowledge the truth silently if needed. Even if you never validate your pain, you can say to yourself, this is not right and I deserve better. Respond from clarity, not emotion. That means you are calm and you stand firm with no. Boundaries sometimes are silent. Remember, silence can be sacred when it's chosen, not forced. Re-anchor your faith before you respond. publicly or privately. Ask for discernment, not just release. Detach with grace and stand firm. You don't need closure from those commitments or mistreatment or misunderstandings. Peace is your closure, and that's real power. So the energetic shift within yourself, when you start responding differently, people who benefited from your silence may call it difficult. They may say you have changed, and they will be right, because you have changed. You no longer, participate in your own mistreatment. You no longer live in emotional autopilot. You have remembered that you are worthy, and that's sacred boundaries that you're creating for yourself. People need to respect. You had forgotten that you had the power within yourself to stand up and be grounded, to stay loving and staying true to yourself. You don't need to lose yourself anymore. You stand firm and you stick to your boundaries. Prayer is a very powerful thing. It's very personal. You can inhale and exhale and release and take a breath and pray that God help me release the need to understand and to be understood by those who cannot see me clearly or understand me clearly. Help me to keep my heart soft, my boundaries strong, my spirit pure. Teach me to respond and not to react, to stand firm but not hard, to forgive without returning to bondage. And when I'm tested, remind me to stay in peace as proof of my power. That is enough. But it takes strength and discipline. And that discipline comes from believing that you are worthy of much more. That you can be seen, you can be heard, and you refuse to be mistreated, and you refuse to be abused, and you stand in your grace without raising your voice. Because when you are calm, your mind is very clear. When you are calm, you see things much more clearly. So, in closing of this episode, the day I finally responded to mistreatment is not the breaking point. It was an awakening. It was the day I stopped bleeding. And I wish the same for you. the day you release yourself and love and still live in disappointment, but be able to say, this disappointment is not mine to carry, and the shame is not mine to carry. Because maintaining spiritual integrity is about, it's not about pretending not to be hurt. It's about refusing to become what hurt you. It's about refusing to be mistreated. It's about giving yourself permission that you are worthy of respect, of living, of better treatment than the one that you have been receiving. It's about you and regaining control over who you allow into your life and begin healing. It's about standing firm within your boundaries. So thank you for joining me today. If this episode touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, I see you.